In this video, I'm going to show you the 4-part meeting rhythm that we installed in our businesses that transformed our meetings from soul-sucking time wasters into the highest leveraged, most valuable time that I spend with my team. If you don't know who I am, my name is Ryan Deiss. My partners and I manage 17 companies across our $200 million holding group. So I participated in, and yes, even led, my fair share of boring meetings. And what I'm going to show you now is how we structure meetings across all of our businesses. I'll talk about the meetings I attend, the meetings I skip, and the one meeting I never ever miss. I'll also give you 3 rules that you can implement right now that I guarantee will make your meetings suck less. Core principle number 1 that I want you to understand is that meetings are work. Like, it's real work. It's become very popular to suggest that companies can exist without meetings, and that meetings are just a total waste of time, and that we should seek to remove them completely. And I want to be clear, I get it. We've tried that before. Teams, if they want to be efficient, if they want to be successful, need to meet. I mean, name any championship sports team in any type of sport anywhere in the world that follows the no meeting advice. Similarly, name any successful relationship. It could be a friendship or romantic relationship where the parties just don't talk. Meetings are essential to business, and if you do meetings the right way, they're not a waste of time. They're some of the best time that you can possibly spend. Peter Drucker, one of the most famous business thinkers who has ever walked this earth, did say that meetings are a symptom of bad organization, and therefore the fewer meetings, the better. And I couldn't agree with Drucker more than that. I agree, the fewer the meetings, the better, but he didn't say no meetings. Core principle number 2, consistency is key. A consistent, predictable meeting rhythm is actually going to save time, because instead of holding interruptive ad hoc meetings every other day, your team is going to start saying, hey, you know what? Let's just add that to next week's agenda. Also, if you don't have a consistent meeting rhythm, I can assure you, you're not going to get the results that you want. And that's because, and I would write this down, optimization is a ritual, not a task. If you want success for the long term, if you want results to compound and just get better and better and better, you can't just optimize willy-nilly, one and done, that's good enough for now. No, you need to optimize on a consistent, predictable basis. And more times than not, optimization is going to occur when great minds get together in the same room. So consistency is key. Core principle number 3, you need to establish rules. I firmly believe that every company should establish rules around their meetings. Not only is it going to be really good for efficiency and things like that, it's also just good, a critical aspect of kind of codifying, this is our culture. You can come up with your own rules, but I'm going to give you a few of ours. So rule number 1 for us is no agenda, no meeting. Now this one's simple, you probably heard it before, but if somebody's gonna request a meeting, my first question is always, what's the agenda? Rule number 2, no outcome, no meeting. The fact is, if we're meeting, it's usually because something isn't working, or it's because a decision needs to be made. So oftentimes, if we're gonna have a meeting, the only unacceptable outcome is just to keep doing the same thing. Usually, if we need to meet, if we need to get together, it's because we need to have a discussion and change needs to occur. So I like to know going into it, what is the outcome? Rule number 3 for us, no expert, no meeting. Now this one sounds a little bit strange, so let me explain. Oftentimes, teams will decide to hold a meeting not really realizing that there's nobody in the room who's able to kind of render a verdict. There's nobody in the room who's in charge. So if there's not that expert in the room, then why are we having the meeting? We don't just want to meet to kind of discuss. We want to meet, again, to achieve a particular outcome. And rule number 4, and this one is really, really important, no scorecard, no meeting. Anytime we're going to come into a meeting, everybody in there needs to agree on what is the problem that is being solved, and we also need to agree on what is the current state of affairs? In other words, what are we going to agree reality is? What is the scorecard that is going to be driving this meeting? What's the scorecard that everybody's looking at? Is it the company scorecard? Is it a team scorecard? What is the scorecard? Because I want to know going into it that everybody agrees that this is reality. If we don't have agreement on reality, we're not going to agree on how we're going to move forward within this reality. So no scorecard, no meeting. So those are our rules. I want to share with you our company's meeting rhythm. And this is the meeting rhythm, again, that we roll out across all of our companies, and that I would encourage you to do as well, because it works really well for us. So first things first, a leadership team is gonna gather for a 1-day strategic planning meeting once every about 3 years. okay? At this meeting, this is when we're gonna get really, really clear on the company's mission, vision, values, longer term, medium term goals, and we like to set 3-year targets. So this is kind of the one meeting that I absolutely, positively will not miss, because this is where the strategic direction of the company is set. So this is a really important meeting. We don't do annual planning. I think that is really important, and I would write this down. Stop annual planning. Annual planning sucks. It's one thing if you gotta, do an annual finance plan or performa or something like that, but when you're thinking about the strategic direction of the business, I really hate annual planning. It's still a bit too long to be predictable, but it's too short to do anything truly meaningful. So we think out in terms of 3-year cycles, because in 3 years, you can do something really big, really cool, and really, really inspiring. Then what we do is we break that 3-year target down into 12 quarterly chunks. In 3 years, there are 12 quarters. And so what we then do is we meet every 90 days for what we call a quarterly sprint planning meeting. Now, this quarterly sprint planning meeting is anywhere from a half day to a day. At this quarterly sprint planning meeting, where the goals and objectives for that next 90 days are set. Where do we need to be from a revenue and profitability standpoint 90 days from today to be on track and on target? And similarly, what actions, what projects, what key initiatives do we need to greenlight over that 90-day period to keep us on track and to optimize things? And it's choosing the metrics and it's choosing the key initiatives that happens at this quarterly sprint planning meeting. Now, once that is done, we're also going to meet once a month for what we refer to as a monthly business review. And this is simply at the end of every month, we have a chance to look back and say, hey, how are we doing? Are we on track for our quarterly plan? Do we need to make a pivot? The other meeting that we have, weekly scorecard meetings, because these are the meetings where, you guessed it, we are reviewing the scorecard. Every week, my leadership team and I are looking at the scorecard and saying, what are the metrics that are green? Yay. What are the ones that are yellow? And what are the ones that are red? Oh no, right? That's getting discussed every single week. Now, hopefully the actions and activities that were already approved at that quarterly sprint planning meeting, hopefully that is enough to turn red to yellow and yellow to green. Even if we feel like we need to do something different, though, again, we're not gonna make any major pivots as a result of the weekly scorecard meetings, because we know that that discussion is gonna happen during the monthly business review. The last meeting type that we would have is the ad hoc meeting. These might be your project kickoff meetings, your brainstorming meetings, the, oh no, the what hit the fan and we need to get everybody together. Now, the good news is that if you follow this meeting rhythm, you will have much fewer and perhaps none of these ad hoc meetings. That is the beauty of this system. It seems like, wow, that's a lot of meetings. But in reality, because we're following that consistent meeting rhythm, more times than not, you're in meetings maybe, an hour or two per week, depending on how many teams you're on. I submit to you that that's probably less time than you're spending in meetings right now. And the reason that you're not going to be spending as much time in meetings is because you're going to have that consistent meeting rhythm. What we do, the process is really, really simple if you follow this rhythm. Step number 1, you want to plan in 3-year cycles. Forget annual planning. I want you to pause. I want you to decide from your team, hey, where do we want to be 3 years from today? Then we want to execute in 90-day sprints. We're gonna break that 3-year plan into 12 quarterly chunks, and every quarter, we're gonna get together to come up with what is the quarterly sprint plan for the next 90 days. We're then going to measure weekly. So we're gonna have a weekly meeting where we review the scorecard. Remember one of our rules, no scorecard, no meeting. That's why our standing weekly leadership and team meetings, there's always going to be a scorecard associated with it. And then lastly, we are going to pivot monthly as needed. So if we need to, we will absolutely make a change. These plans are not chiseled in stone. It's just not how business works. You might be sitting there saying, wow, that seems like a lot of time in meetings, but the fact is, and I've said this a couple of times, a consistent and effective meeting rhythm will actually save you time. That is how we do it. I would love to know what changes, if any, do you plan to make to your meetings and your meeting rhythm? Drop a comment below. I would love to hear your thoughts. Also, keep in mind that a consistent meeting rhythm is just one piece of a company operating system. So if you want to get the other pieces, check out my full video on how to scale from $10 million to $200 million a year using a scalable operating system. I'll see you there.